This video is being posted as a premiere with a live chat function where I hope many tarot perspectives are being shared. Because of how popular and loud the throw away the books tarot perspective is, I know and hope a lot of dissenting voices are going to be present. So if you're watching this on replay after the fact, please also read the chat transcript and account for those voices in your consideration. Lighting's kind of crazy today. Lately, there's been this emerging trend that people refer to as intuitive tarot reading, but I wonder if that's a misnomer. I'm not against using your intuition to extrapolate a card meaning. I don't think anyone reasonable is against that. But you can't deny a loud voice in the community overtaking YouTube, Instagram, the dominance of this trend that says throw out the books because everything you need to know already about the tarot is in your brain. Forget the masters, make up your own set of card meanings. Here's what I'm reading between the lines though. Not everybody is using the word intuition or intuitive tarot to mean the same thing. Intuition, by the definition I'm working with, is a reasoning process. Believe it or not, it's analytical. Yeah, intuition is analytical, but it just happens at a depth that transcends the conscious mind, beyond known facts. Intuition is a reasoning process of the mind that feels mystical because scientists and psychologists can't quite explain what's happening. But neuroscientists tell us that it's still a reasoning analytical process. You're reaching beyond your own immediate knowledge to tap into some other intangible body of knowledge. That's intuition. But your ability to access that beyond, that collective unconscious, the akasha, is an ability you can train and improve upon. You can develop and hone your intuitive capability. Every major mystical tradition around the world says that. And if you want to bring in magic, it goes back to the word, to logos, intention. Is your intention to venture into the beyond, or is your intention simply, yeah, I know everything already. If I say it is so, it is right. A vocal and popular point of view emerging today in the tarot world is assuring you that everything you need to know about reading tarot cards is in you already, and you can find it in the two-dimensional picture on each card right now. If I'm conceding that is even intuitive tarot, it's very, very limited intuitive tarot. And you can do better than that, I promise you. Intuitive tarot requires wisdom, and who do you know is a pillar of wisdom who tells everybody to throw out all the books? So I think what this point of view is actually espousing in its subtext is instant gratification tarot. Actually, you don't want to cultivate wisdom through study of multiple points of view of history and culture. You want instant gratification. You want to be a spiritual powerhouse guru right now, today. My first response isn't actually to reject that method. It's to say, wait, hold on. What's your purpose for learning the tarot? Let's use an analogy. If I am someone coming into art just for fun, like I'm only going to paint on weekends for myself as a form of art therapy and for my specific objectives for painting, instant gratification isn't a bad thing. Then yeah, as an art teacher, I'm going to skip art history, color theory, quantitative literacy, cultural ideas and influences, landscape composition, or any intensive direct studies, right? Basically, all of the required education of an MFA in fine arts, not necessary. So how would I teach art to someone who just wants to do it for fun on weekends as a form of emotional release? I'll give the very, very basics. This is a paintbrush. These are your paints. Here's the canvas. Then I would just lead the student to art intuitively. Sit for a moment with your emotions. What color do you visualize these emotions to be? What is a story that expresses your feelings? Now let's compose that story with symbols. What images symbolize the different pieces of your story? How do you want to tell that story through the arrangement of those symbols, and in what colors on your canvas? Likewise, and that's why the analogy, if you're just playing around with the tarot for yourself, for fun, for truly entertainment purposes only, or heck, even just as a form of journaling therapy, then yes, maybe throwing out the books and going at it in any method that elicits instant gratification, yes, is the right approach for you. That intuitive instant gratification method of studying and reading tarot works, and works powerfully. But then it becomes a deeply subjective, a very unique, personal approach that may not work for others because your scope of knowledge is extremely narrow. Going back to the art example, if I am that weekend hobbyist painter and before you even let me hold a paintbrush, you're making me read these giant hardcover textbook tomes on cultural anthropology or an in-depth study of Proto-Renaissance art and its Roman influences, like, no, you've lost me. Forget the paints. Maybe I don't want to paint anymore. Forget it. So yes, that textbook reading would be a very bad approach to teaching art to the weekend hobbyist painter because you want to shepherd them straight into the fun, the expressive, and the therapeutic aspects of art. But a student serious about becoming a professional artist, someone with the ambition to become a pivotal figure in the art movement of that person's culture, time, and place, then the elite education is required to give that serious student the best fighting chance. No elite education is the exception, not the rule. I'm certainly not saying the miracle case never happens. Of course it does, but it's the exception, not the rule. Here's another interesting point. It's scientifically proven, Stanford University, University of Amsterdam, this is a real thing. There is a strong correlation between those who feel fulfilled, happy, and are very successful in life, and having a voracious appetite for knowledge. By and large, you are not going to find people with the attitude, throw out the books, I know everything already, correlated with high achievement, or even happiness, or even a sense of spiritual and emotional fulfillment. So keeping I am an empty vessel ready to be filled with knowledge by reading the masters from their books is adopting an attitude preparing you for success and happiness. Learning that humility in tarot is a great place to start your larger spiritual journey of achieving sophisticated esoteric knowledge and ultimately success and happiness. In case I wasn't clear, and I know I tend to put my own foot in my mouth, I am not saying you need advanced degrees to be happy and fulfilled or successful. In fact, I vehemently disagree with that stance. But I am saying you need a curiosity for learning. In the tarot, to truly be a tarot master, you must have a curiosity for learning tarot. So throwing out the tarot books is antithetical to that required curiosity for learning more. I present to you for consideration, if you approach learning beginner tarot with total humility, humbleness that tells you that you have to learn from the masters first before you get around to rebelling against the masters, then ultimately in the long run, your study and your experiences with the tarot are going to feel richer, more fulfilling, deeper, and rock solid. If you believe intuitively, all the knowledge is already inside your head, I have to ask, could it be that on some subconscious level, you're dogmatic, unwilling to expand beyond the boundaries of your pre-existing worldview, and you go at this with the presumption that your intuition knows it all already? There's nothing wrong with being egotistical, but if you don't have the knowledge to back up your ego, then in the long run, you will still feel empty, unfulfilled. You'll still doubt yourself, feel very insecure. The good news about learning tarot is it's in large part a skill. Your own innate creativity, sure, will decide whether you can transform skill into brilliant art, but it still starts as a skill. Pattern recognition is instrumental in tarot, and pattern recognition is a skill. And if you talk to psychologists, researchers, and neuroscientists, there are established ways to dramatically increase your abilities at pattern recognition. Study of nature, art, mathematics, study as many different disciplines as you can. Find a left-brained hobby to polish the skills of your right brain, and find a right-brained hobby to hone the skills of your left brain. By the way, to be clear, the left-right brain dichotomy is a construct we use just for easier classification. It's not real. Your brain is a lot more holistic and collaborative than that. Learning tarot with the purpose of mastery, hear what I'm saying here. I'm not talking to the weekend tarot hobbyist. I mean, if you are serious about mastering the art of tarot, then you have to think about honing your skill at pattern recognition. And tarot books, considering how many libraries you can fill with just tarot books, represent this incredible resource for honing that skill of pattern recognition. Because you build that skill by learning to see what others saw. Then you adopt and adapt that skill so you can start to see patterns for yourself. See, if you think I'm telling you to read a bunch of tarot books to memorize card meanings because that's how you tarot, then you're not listening to me. I'm saying you want to read a bunch of tarot books because that exercise in and of itself, that layering of knowledge like laying bricks or building your foundation in your mind, is how you hone your skill at pattern recognition. A really good example is court cards. And I actually think that is a reason a lot of tarot beginners have trouble with court cards. There are definitely books from a certain era that say things like, here's the Queen of Swords. She always represents a backstabbing, cunning bitch. Here's the Queen of Cups. A tender-hearted female will definitely enter your life. Here's the King of Pentacles. This is definitely a man of some prestige and socioeconomic status. Okay, yeah, if we're saying, oh, I read those card meanings in a tarot book, so that must be immutably true, then yeah, I think you very quickly run into problems in actual tarot readings when these court cards start coming up. That's because a tarot beginner is susceptible to forgetting symbolism, pattern recognition, metaphor. Even if we were to say the Queen of Cups represents a tender-hearted female, even that, the personhood of the tender-hearted female is still a metaphor for you to work through. It's not yet the card meaning itself. Tender, heart, cultural, socialized femininity, picking apart the symbols pictured on the card itself, the chalice, the water, cherubs, pattern recognition, her foot touching the surface of the water. What other cards in the tarot depict a female figure with feet touching the surface of water? The High Priestess, the Temperance card, the Star card. Knowledge that these three are from the three different septenaries of the major arcana, representing three different levels of transcendence that the Queen of Cups has a potential of achieving. I mean, you kinda have to have read a book or two to have known that one, yeah? The Eight of Swords. No one is saying affirmatively that the Queen of Cups card means High Priestess or Temperance or the Star or Eight of Swords. What I'm saying is the skill of pattern recognition and effective use of intuition, intuitive tarot, is to intuit aspects of the High Priestess, Temperance, the Star, even the Eight of Swords in the Queen of Cups. And then reading a tarot history book, you'll know that I'm referring specifically and only to the iconography of the Rider-Waite-Smith tarot, not one from the Marseille tradition or Thoth. How a red shirt looks on you versus how a red shirt looks on me can actually be totally different. In the same way, the Queen of Cups in my reading is going to mean something slightly different from what it means in your reading. Because in an actual tarot reading in motion, our differing personalities, differing life experiences, all of that are major factors that have to be accounted for. Listening to the cards and having a very direct personal relationship with the cards is not mutually exclusive from being a bit of a nerd and studying tarot books or rote memorization of card meanings. In my opinion, I do see an inherent arrogance in this notion of throwing out the tarot books. Just trust your intuition, which, like I said, is a misnomer because what that proposition actually means is instant gratification tarot. Let me give you another reason to crack open those books and read. History. What's something we learn when we study history from books? You learn as much from omission as you do from what's actually printed on the page. Want to really exercise your intuition? Read a history book or a tarot book and intuit what is missing from the page. What are the implications of that omission? When you read a book about Gnosticism from a devout Catholic writing in the 14th century, you can't just take what's literally on the page to learn about Gnosticism. You need to read between the lines, implications by omission, to begin to intuit a more holistic picture of Gnostic belief systems. When you read about U.S. history from the Civil War era, think about whose voices are missing, which perspectives are not being equally represented, and dig deeper into the areas of omission if you truly want to deepen your own knowledge pool, and then be the one to expand that knowledge pool for others in the future. All of that intuitive tarot, truly intuitive, cutting-edge, innovative tarot, groundbreaking tarot mastery requires you to have read the books to know what's missing. You can't create progressive change unless you know what came before. You can't break the rules in a conscientious way if you haven't memorized the rule book backward and forward. Just think about every great tarot master and occult writer. I would say almost all of the ones that make their mark on history were well read, because it's by being well read that they could intuit what was missing. Holistic Tarot, for example, and its endnotes, this book is analytical on the surface, but if you approach it with humility and you follow the course syllabus, you're going to get a holistic education. I say to your face, wagging my finger, analysis. But the student on the path of mastery will come full circle and advance their intuition. I think a truly successful study of holistic tarot will get you to the end point of throwing this book out entirely. But if the beginner starts by throwing out all the books, you don't have any of the bricks you need to pave a path toward mastery. The best that the throw out the books beginner learner can achieve is the weekend moonlighting for entertainment purposes only tarot reader. The professional tarot reader taking your money who has never read any books? Would you spend your hard-earned cash and take your really serious health problems to a doctor who's like, yeah, I've never read a single medical book and I don't keep up to date on the latest medical technology by reading any of the peer-reviewed journals? First of all, that isn't even going to happen. They're required by their certifications to continue education. Or a lawyer or an accountant who has not read any of the books, their industry's books. I'm guessing your answer is heck no. You want your professional to be as smart and as learned as can be, to be self-motivated to learn, to always be learning more. So why wouldn't you hold your tarot professional to the same standard of excellence? And yet at the same time, tarot professionals are constantly whining about wanting to be taken more seriously. I really want to be clear. I'm in no way against throwing out the books. If your objective for working with tarot cards is for fun, is as a hobbyist, and you have no intention whatsoever of ever being responsible for anyone else's fate, meaning you don't ever plan on reading the cards for others. Because the moment you use a deck of cards to read about life for someone other than yourself, to say you are not now assuming some extent of personal responsibility and accountability to that person you're reading for, and then if you accept their money for that reading, I come out really strongly on this particular opinion. You owe an ethical duty to be competent, and competency requires knowledge, and to be able to say you're knowledgeable means you have to be able to say You've read the books. The tarot professional who wants to be treated as a high specialty professional who is demanding respect as an industry needs to first step up and act like a professional. That's not through tarot certification. That's not through paying $1,000 for a fancy website. It's by never losing the motivation to learn, staying curious. No one needs to tell you to read the books or continue your education on where tarot trends have been and where they're going. You just on your own care. I'll be candid here. The new trend of throw out the tarot books way is dismantling everything past generations of tarot masters worked so hard to build for us. No matter what opinion or conclusion you reach about Arthur Edward Waite or Aleister Crowley, you've read them. I'm not saying you take Eden Gray as gospel. I'm saying you're aware of what she has to say. And to my point earlier, learn tarot just as much through what's omitted as you do from what's on the page. You're familiar with the works of our living legends, Rachel Pollack and Mary Greer. You're staying up to date on the evolution of tarot trends, and you have enough of a knowledge base to compare that to what came before. You have some sense of the timeline from Marseille traditions of reading to why Waite created his deck with Pamela Coleman Smith, filling it with Golden Dawn interpretations, and how the popularity of the RWS deck modified card meanings from the Marseille, and then why Crowley after Waite created his Thoth deck, how the Thoth responded to what came before it, and how it advanced tarot architecture beyond its precedents. Where do tarot card meanings even come from? You've asked yourself that question before, and you've attempted to investigate for the answer. That requires you to go beyond yourself to do the due diligence, to read many points of view. You don't just and light switch on. You're not Buddha. I'm not saying you've read Atea or Anton Corday Jabalan, but I am saying if you are holding yourself out as a tarot professional, you're familiar with what they had to say. Don't agree with Waite's card meanings and his pictorial key? Neither do I. But still want to read with his deck? Me too. You think I use the Marseille keywords? Nope. But if you love tarot and you respect the art to the point you want to be a thought leader in the tarot community, then yeah, maybe read a book or two. It's not intuitive tarot or book memorization tarot. They're not mutually exclusive. The most powerful mode of intuitive tarot is to have read so many books on so many different subject matter that it's not even about accurately recalling any particular fact you've read. It's that every book on the occult and on tarot perspectives you read is getting absorbed and cemented into your psychic foundation. Every single book you read, even if your conscious memory can't recall a single thing, the dedication of reading that book forges a thread of connection into the collective unconscious. The more threads of connection into the collective unconscious, the more powerful your intuitive tarot readings are. If you're just extrapolating answers from the image on this card and your limited unread knowledge, your thread of connection into the psychic realm is not as strong as I believe you're capable of being. When you see this card and almost supernaturally, in less than an instant, whoosh, you feel the threads of connection lighting up and reaching outward and beyond. You're intuiting from a much deeper pool than someone relying on the four corners of the card's image and the limiting walls of their unlearned mind. Finally, let's not ignore nuance. Don't think you're going to refute my point by misrepresenting what I've said here. I am not saying rote memorization is the one true way. I am not saying trust every book you read. I'm not even saying education has to literally be from printed books. I'm using books as a metaphor for education. If you throw away books before you even begin learning the tarot, then with your actions, you're saying education is not important. If education is not important to you, then studies have shown that you're not as likely to achieve success, happiness, and emotional fulfillment in life. telling someone else to throw out the books because it's okay might just ask yourself if you're sending the right message. Now, if you throw away the books after you've read every single one of them, studied them to their faults, even holistic tarot, yes, this book, understanding but appreciating its limitations and what it can't do for you, then at that stage of your evolution, you're not throwing out the books. You're transcending the books. The books are already a lower layer of your own foundation of knowledge and wisdom. If you are telling me you want to be a professional tarot reader, charging money to be a serious professional reader, or you want to be a tarot master and you think you are exempt from all of this learning, forget I said anything. You do you. I can't stress enough. It's not that literally what Crowley has to say about the tarot and Kabbalah and I Ching hexagram correspondences to the tarot need to literally show up during a tarot reading about whether or not Bob is going to leave Betty for you or if you'll get the job. It's the unseen, unspoken foundation beneath your feet that give you something solid to stand on, something universal, an understanding of core truths to transcend from. The study of tarot and astrology is not always just about improving your tarot reading at the surface level. It's about deepening your tarot reading at the occult, unseen level. Mastery over both tarot and astrology, or both tarot and the Kabbalah, turns a light switch on. And when that light switch flicks on in your psychic mind, oh, okay, now we're actually doing intuitive tarot. Reading books and books and books on the tarot is in itself a mystical, esoteric path to enlightenment, to unraveling the mysteries. Yeah, the lighting was bothersome.